creepy TikToks that will blow your mind. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go!
Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, as these clips haven't been fact-checked.
This thing called fog, basically nanotechnology. You can create anything. Mountains, you can create clouds. There's military escorting these people in Mexico. And Jesse Michael says this is completely speculative. They got ambushed by like these guys in not U.S. uniforms. They had all the military equipment. They take the guy out, the military guy.
Brutally.
It's terrible. They load these people up in a crate, a container, attach it to a helicopter, and they're flying. And the U.S. satellites saw this whole incident take place. These generals are talking like, did you send an ops team to do this? You know, special operations against special operations, creepy stuff. They send 2 fighter pilots to come basically like tell them, hey, you guys gotta go land. All of a sudden there's a mountain and this guy's going supersonic speed. His electrical system goes out. He ejects going at supersonic speed. Other pilots saw this happen. His electrical system goes out. He crashes. But before they crash, they see this helicopter fly into the mountain. So like they said, it was 3D, then 2D, then completely transparent. They flew into it and there's a tunnel. And so this goes back to this whole foglets thing. It can be used to match your biometric data too. So like in theory, like there's a mountain, you can punch it and your arm would go through it if it matches your biometric data. But if it doesn't, boom, you're really punching a rock.
Wow. Vampires are real and governments know it. For hundreds of years, Middle Eastern and European governments were locked in 2 parallel fronts, one between the Ottoman Empire and Christian Europe, and another where both sides were forced to confront the spread of vampires. In Turkey, Ebu Suud Efendi, one of the most powerful government jurists in Ottoman history, issued sweeping fatwas on how these entities were to be neutralized. Landmark cases of the undead, documented by the Turkish government, includes the manifestation of a Christian revenant in Salonika that terrorized a village in Rumelia, the reanimation of an individual named Bıyıklı Ali in the late 1600s, and the Alamdar brothers in 1833, the latter of whom were also responsible for a series of poltergeist manifestations across the town of Tarnovo. Prior to that, in the early 1700s, the Austrian military began documenting cases of vampirism following reports from the Slavic territories about a contagion turning villagers into the undead, including Petar Blagojević, a Serbian revenant who allegedly ended the lives of 9 of his fellow villagers, and Arnon Paule, a reanimated peasant suspected of transforming 15 people into vampires after being bitten by a Turkish vampire weeks earlier. To watch the full documentary, check out the mysterious Middle East episode Vampires vs. the Ottomans.
You know what? I think Middle Eastern people will always be safe from vampires. Why? They love garlic sauce.
Charlie Kirk was killed by an explosive placed in his wireless mic is growing in popularity. And when you look at the reenactments done online, side by side, you can't help but notice the way that the shirt moves, the way that the necklace moves, and the way that the body moves are so similar. And now Tucker Carlson is openly saying that he believes that Charlie Kirk was killed because
believe he was most likely murdered for his evolving views on Israel.
Which is interesting when it comes to the exploding mic theory, because almost exactly a year before Charlie Kirk's assassination, Israel attacked Hezbollah with exploding walkie-talkies and pagers in an operation called Grim Beeper. And then you look at what TPUSA has done. They've put his handheld mic on display, but where's the wireless one? Brian Harple, Charlie Kirk's security, said that in the hospital he cut his freedom shirt off. Where is that? Isn't that evidence? What if there's shrapnel on it? Speaking of which, this is what an exploded Rode wireless mic looks like. And when you freeze frame Charlie's hand the moment after the attack, that's what a lot of people believe they are seeing on his hand. And in October of 2025, Ian Carroll brought up the fact that there was an explosives factory that was wiped off the map in Tennessee that had government contracts that made mic packs. And immediately after Charlie Kirk's assassination, UVU did complete construction in the area where he was assassinated, and people wondered if it was to cover up evidence. And now you have to wonder if the evidence they were trying to hide was from an exploded mic. This was once just a conspiracy theory, but it seems that it's shaping up to be something more. As always, I want to hear what you think about all of this down
Then they bulldozed the entire crime scene hours later.
below.
Some of the most marvelous fixtures of these grand old world homes were the fireplaces. But the truth about these fireplaces are they were never made for wood. They were all part of harnessing that ether technology. The rebar in the home was connected to the top antennas, all leading back to these fireplaces, oftentimes with metal backing plates found on them. And as you look at all these grand old world fireplaces, you will see no signs of soot. But what you'll see in a lot of them are those metal plates in the back with those two domed orbs connecting to those ether towers on the roof. Like I said, the purpose of these fireplaces were never made to burn wood or burn anything. Some didn't even have flues attached to them. Just look at ones like that, white marble. Imagine how dirty that would get. How ruined that magnificent centerpiece of the house would be. Burning logs in them. These fireplaces and the ether towers pair well with those red bricks from my previous video, though. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
They said it was the heart of a home. Maybe they meant it literally.
If there is that you should be wary of, it is the self-proclaimed lone wolf that willingly operates without a band of brothers. The reason that the term lone wolf even exists in the first place is because he is an oddity. Wolves are pack animals that hunt and live together in large groups in much the same way that humans do, which is why they often found themselves side by side at the fire, forming mutually beneficial relationships. The wolf pack symbolism is most clearly represented in the Proto-Indo-European idea of the kurios. In Indo-European tribal societies, boys were trained to be warriors from a young age, and when they became old enough, they would be sent out together in war bands known as a kurios, where they would be essentially exiled from their tribe to hunt, raid, explore, and fend for themselves for a disclosed period of time. This was used as a rite of passage for these boys before they could be recognized as men. The kurios would take on the literal form of a wolf pack, as they would form in groups of 5 to 20 individuals headed by a single leader known as a kurionos, who formed the foundation of their hierarchy. They would often wear wolf and animal skins and embody the spirit of a pack of wolves, as they would rely on none other than each other for survival. This bond of shared hardship is what turned these boys into men, and this was a practice that is recognized in all Indo-European cultures, from the Germanic Mannerbund, the Celtic Fianna, the Vedic Maruts, the Norse Ulfethnar, which literally means wolfskin, and of course the Greek Lycos, which literally just means wolf. And this is why the wolf appears so consistently in Indo-European myth, as it is always tied to masculine power that exists either within structure or outside of it. You see, in Norse mythology, Fenrir is a single wolf, never a good sign, and he is the beast that brings about the end of the world, known as Ragnarok. The gods recognize immediately that he cannot be integrated, so he must be restrained. His power has no direction, no structure around it, and so it becomes purely destructive, just like a man without brothers. But in that same mythological system, you have Geri and Freki, the wolves that accompany Odin. Their names literally translate to the greedy one and the ravenous one, but unlike Fenrir, they are not chaotic forces. They are aligned and disciplined because they are operating alongside a leader in the structure of a group. And the symbolism here is obvious. The masculine force of a man without brotherhood reaps chaos and destruction for himself and others. But when men band together under a common goal, they become an ordered force that has the potential for victory. For most men today, there is no equivalent structure, at least not one that is mandatory, as we have done away with the sacred rite of passage into manhood. There is no forced period of separation, no expectation of proving oneself amongst other men. There is no environment that requires this sense of coordination, loyalty, and risk in order to move forward. And this in turn has bred generations of men who have found themselves lost because they believe that they must do it alone. They must forge themselves alone. They think that they are a lone wolf, Sigma male, Batman type, but in reality, they are simply unsociable, and it's often not even their fault. It is modernity's. A wolf in nature never chooses to be alone. It is always the result of unfortunate circumstances. Without the pack structure, it becomes unpredictable, less effective, and far more vulnerable, just like men. A good man is not a harmless man. He is a dangerous man, a monster even, who has learned how to direct himself properly. And historically, this direction was never learned alone. It was always learned within the kurios. I believe that we must return to a tradition of brotherhood beyond the profane traditions like college fraternity life. We must be organizing ourselves, finding like-minded individuals, and sharpening one another for the sake of the group. This is how we move forward. This is how we win. You must find your brothers and start kurios maxing.
The only sort of kurios available today is the military, right?
Time traveler at Elvis Presley's final concert, and they think it's a CERN scientist. A resurfaced video from 1977 appears to show a woman holding what looks like a modern smartphone nearly 30 years before the iPhone and years before the first commercial cell phone. But this isn't the first time. Conspiracy theorists have also pointed to a man who appeared to be talking on a cell phone during World War II. We've even seen a spectator at a 1995
there's an iPhone right there.
Be recording with what looked like a smartphone.
Told him your greatest asset can become your greatest weakness.
Man.
Skeptics say they're just old cameras or other period devices, but here's the twist. Some physicists say traveling to the past isn't mathematically impossible. And then there's CERN, an organization often blamed for messing with timelines.
All right, fine. I will tell you why they keep trying to jump timelines and why CERN keeps skipping through time. And it's because they've already seen into the future. Okay? Rumors speculate they've seen 45,000 years into the future. Speculation, though, you know. But there's also Project Looking Glass that, they've already took a peek and saw that they lose no matter what. So they're just rolling the dice.
And if you listen to what they're building, you might start to believe these insane time-traveling claims.
Replacing about 1.2 kilometers of the 27-kilometer ring with the high luminosity LHC magnets. This will give us a machine that's 10 times brighter than the Large Hadron Collider, 10 times more data. So it really is an opportunity to explore the universe in a way we haven't done before.
Haven't you seen a face like this before? Look at him carefully. The stare, the posture. It doesn't feel ancient. It feels familiar. Painted in 1889 by Franz von Stuck. This is the Wild Hunt. The rider is Wotan, a god of death, leading a storm of lost souls. That same year, a man was born who would one day turn myth into reality. In old legends, seeing this hunt meant one thing: you were marked, either for death or dragged into their ranks. Because some faces don't stay in myths, they return.
Some nightmares are painted before they come to life.
Every guy must hear. There is no rest for the man who has seen the person he was born to become. Epicurus. He who has a will to strike has not yet lost. Miyamoto Musashi. Two traps you need to avoid: caring what they think and thinking that they care. Epicurus. No man is free from the fire by fleeing its heat. He must pass through it or remain unchanged. Friedrich Nietzsche. Man. Peace does not come to the man that refuses to declare war on what is destroying him. Seneca. What you seek is seeking you. Rumi. He who has a will to live can bear almost any how. Friedrich Nietzsche. And lastly, do not give up on something you think about every day. I'm not too sure, I just like this one.
There was one country that Jews called paradise. Literally. In Latin, Paradisus Judaeorum. And no, it's not Israel. The year is 1264. All of Europe is kicking Jews out. England, France, Germany, Spain, one big get lost. But at the very same time, a Polish duke signs a document that historians call the Jewish Magna Carta. 36 articles: freedom of trade, freedom of religion, protection from false accusations, harm done to a Jew punished the same as harm done to a Christian. In the 13th century, while Western Europe was burning them at the stake. The result? By the 16th century, 80% of all Jews in the world lived in Poland. 80. They had their own parliament in Lublin, the Vad Arba Aratsot, which lasted nearly 200 years, and Polish coins from the 12th century, minted by Jewish mintmasters, with inscriptions in Hebrew. The official state currency read, Mieszko, King of Poland, written in Hebrew letters. And here's the best part. The phrase, Paradise of the Jews, was originally an insult. An anonymous pamphlet from 1606 slipped in at a royal wedding. The author complained that Jews had too many privileges, but the term survived and changed its meaning. From an insult, it became a compliment. Poland, as the only country where Jews felt safe, while the rest of Europe was showing them the door. That changed drastically after World War II, but that's a story for the next episode. Drop a comment if you knew about this, because almost nobody does.
I did not know this. Thank you.
A Jewish guy predicted the Holocaust. His name was Moses Hess, and in 1862, he published a book called Rome and Jerusalem, a study in Jewish nationalism, where he predicted that a form of German nationalism would create anti-Semitism that would be so bad it would create an existential threat to all the Jews in Europe. Said that the only solution to it would be to colonize Palestine and reestablish a state for the Jewish people. And he said that Eastern European Jews would lead the effort. What is this guy? Nostradamus?
Fun fact, Nostradamus was Jewish.
What do you make of that statement by General McCaslin that looking at the phenomenon, you need to understand Greek mythology? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, well, and he puts specific emphasis on the Prometheus myth structure, which is essentially you have this deity who's part of, I believe he's actually not an Olympian, but he's a Titan, I believe. And he has a brother named Epimetheus. So Prometheus means something like forethought, and Epimetheus means something like afterthought, which is interesting because you got to like look deeper into what they mean by saying that, right? So what he does is he takes fire, he brings it to the humans, and then he gets punished basically eternally for taking a divine power and bringing it down to humanity without permission. So, and the punishment is he gets put on this island. I don't remember the name of the island, but then this eagle comes and eats his liver every single day, and it regenerates, and he's chained up there for eternity and just keeps getting this punishment visited upon him over and over and over again. So, I mean, the broad strokes of it seem kind of obvious, right? That there was probably some kind of entity,
technology,
higher power that at some point came here and either gave us something or did something or seeded something. And that had huge repercussions on what we are. And it's hard to know how deep to read into this, right? Does that mean they gave us technology? Does it mean they gave us language?
Knowledge?
Does it mean they manipulated our DNA? Does it mean they literally seeded the entire planet? So then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is McCaslin trying to communicate here? I guess you also have to consider, could he be trying to mislead or play games with them, right? I don't know this guy.
Sure.
So
or could he just be like, read between the lines? I can't tell you exactly what's happening, but I can point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
You can perhaps make some discovery.
Lebanese Mexican kid bought his first stock when he was just 12. By 30, he was worth $40 million. By 70, he was the richest person on earth, ahead of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Today, he's worth $102 billion, and almost no American has heard of him. His name is Carlos Slim, and his empire literally runs Mexico. Carlos was born in Mexico City in 1940 to Lebanese immigrants. His father gave him a notepad to track every purchase he made starting at age 6. He bought his first government savings bond at age 11. By 17, he was teaching algebra at the National University in Mexico City. He never lost the obsession with numbers. So here's how he built all this. In the 1980s, Mexico had a brutal economic crisis. Inflation hit 159%. Companies were dying. Foreign investors fled. Slim came in and did the opposite. He went on a buying spree, picking up Mexican icon companies for pennies. He bought insurance companies, mining companies, retailers, even the Mexican Hershey and British American tobacco subsidiaries. He scooped up companies the world had given up on. Then in 1990, the Mexican government privatized Telmex, the national phone company. Slim won the auction. Telmex controlled 90% of every phone line in Mexico. He turned it into American Mobile, which now operates 25 countries in Latin America and Eastern Europe. And he didn't stop there. He bought 17% of the New York Times during the financial crisis. He bought stakes in Bankia, Saks Fifth Avenue, and TracFone in the US. Today, his conglomerate Grupo Carso owns over 200 companies in 8 industries: telecom, banking, mining, retail, construction, real estate, energy, and media. His wealth equals about 5% of Mexico's entire economy.
He's a great businessman, but his parents were rich already. He didn't start with nothing, grew up in a business culture.
This man right here, that was riddled with little man syndrome, marched him, his army, his horses, and his ego all the way from France.
There's a Freemason pose right there. Like that.
To Moscow. But when he got there, he couldn't believe his eyes because there wasn't anybody in the city. He marched all that way and there was nobody there. And even well after 1812, where's everybody at? Where are they? And I get it. They said that the citizens fled before the war came to their doorsteps. Then why does every 19th century city across the world look vacant. I understand the exposure thing, but I mean, Moscow having, 360,000 people in 1860s, shouldn't we see like a wisp going across here? Like, shouldn't we see a wisp at least? And I know a lot of you have probably seen this, but the best representation is San Francisco. They weren't even in early census. And then in 1860, they just had 60,000 people in the whole city. Then in 1880, they only had about 200,000 people. Where are they at? And why is all this infrastructure there? This is supposed to be LA. This could be in the middle of Kansas. We would not have any clue where this actually is, but there's nobody there. There's probably 5,000 or 6,000 people at this time. Same time frame as LA and San Francisco, 1867 Moscow. Was there like a pandemic going on at this time? We got France, 1860s again. This don't fit at all. And the one guy that is in this photo is about to kill himself. He's about to jump, guys, because he's lonely. The dang Capitol doesn't have it. I mean, is there not any security outside? Even when the new one, like nobody's watching this happen, like this getting built. Nobody. Like, look at this thing next to that. We know which one we built. Why wouldn't there be one? I'm just kidding. I'm hiding the one guy in this photo. No, there's nobody there either. Must be rush hour. It's like, would be peaceful, but just terrifying at the same time. And Ghost Town of Galveston, this is their Masonic hall. I know it's in the 19th century because the hurricane in 1900 would chop the tip off. Galveston again. I mean, they just don't make sense. I mean, there's power lines. This guy's super proud of what he found. In 1880, Birmingham, Alabama had like 4,000 people. Then in 1900, they had about 38,000 people. Then in 1906, this is 1906. This is what it looked like there. This guy's just dumping dirt in the road. Boston, Massachusetts. Boston, one of the oldest cities in America. There is not one soul in this photo. Boston, again, just nope. I think I see a couple wisps right there. Few in the back, still Boston. The most we've seen in a photo. The most right people we've seen in a photo. But shouldn't it be just popping? Shouldn't it be popping? Couple wisps at the post office in Buffalo, but a couple. And again, even when there's people, like those 10 people do not fit that building. There's 2,000 people that can fit in this insane asylum. Are they just letting 3 out at a time to get some fresh air? I would love to see the photos that y'all have, because I know there's a lot out there of vacant cities. Show me what you got.
Is the Varangian method the key to getting a girlfriend? Women can be an enigma for many young men. Some say you need to acquire wealth. Others say you must have an interesting or high-status occupation. Others yet say it's all about how you look. But what does the Varangian method say? All of the above. Bolli Bolason's success with the ladies as a result of this method is recorded in the Laxdale saga. Bolli was an 11th century Icelandic man who sought adventure outside of his homeland. He journeyed south, eventually making his way to Constantinople, heart of the Eastern Roman Empire and one of the greatest cities in Europe. There he joined the Varangian Guard, an elite shock troop and bodyguard. The saga indicates that Bolli may have been the first Northman to join the Corps, which began as a unit of Kievan Rus warriors in service to the Roman Emperor, though eventually expanded to include Norsemen and Anglo-Saxons. Bolli is recorded as having fought well, a brave warrior who always was at the forefront of battle. His Rus comrades in the Guard accounted Bolli most highly of whilst he was with them in Micklegarth. Surviving the various dangers of war, he returned to Iceland in 1030 AD, just a few years before the famous Norwegian king Harald Hardrada joined himself, who was perhaps inspired by Bolli's exploits. Regardless, Bolli came back wealth maxed, status maxed, and looks maxed, and the ladies of Iceland took notice. I will let the saga speak for Bolli here. Bolli brought out with him much wealth, and many precious things that lords abroad had given him. Bolli was so great a man for show when he came back from this journey that he would wear no clothes but of scarlet and fur, and all his weapons were bedight with gold. He was called Bolli the Grand. He made it known to his shipmasters that he was going west to his own countrysides, and he left his ship and goods in the hands of his crew. Bolli rode from the ship with 12 men, and his followers were dressed in scarlet and rode on gilt saddles. In all were they a trusty band, though Bolli was peerless among them. He had on the clothes of fur which the Garth king had given him. He had over all a scarlet cape, and he had footbiter girt on him, the hilt of which was dight with gold, and the grip woven with gold. He had a gilded helmet on his head, and a red shield on his flank, with the knight painted on it in gold. He had a dagger in his hand, as is the custom in foreign lands. And whenever they took quarters, the women paid heed to nothing but. gazing at Boley and his grandeur and that of his followers. As it turns out, slaying men on the battlefields gave Boley an opportunity to slay HTBs back at home, though it should not be lost on my esteemed audience that Boley made a point of visiting his mother, Gudrun, who was very glad to see him, before entertaining these damsels. Unfortunately, the Varangian method was already patched by the time the Ottomans conquered Constantinople in 1453, but we can still take inspiration from it. Look the part and act the part. Everywhere Boley went, he was highly regarded as brave and noble, and his achievements translated into riches of the mind, body, spirit, and yes, literal riches. Dress sharply, do cool things, earn the respect of your peers, get your money up, and you too may unlock the Varangian method. Also, it doesn't hurt to have a Dane axe on hand, which many of the Varangian guards were known to use.
My man, I'm going to buy a Dane axe now.
If you were to study one subject for the rest of your life that would almost guarantee your success, it would be human nature. Because the person who understands why people do what they do has an edge in every single room they walk into. The problem is most people are learning skills that might not even matter 10 years from now. Platforms change, technology changes, industries change, but one thing has stayed the same for all of human history, and that is people. Human ego, human fear, human desire, human insecurity. The same status games that Machiavelli talked about in his book The Prince 500 years ago are still happening today. But now it just looks like social media, office politics, dating, business, relationships. The environment has changed, but human nature hasn't. That's why understanding people is the ultimate skill. But even understanding yourself and observing your thoughts is human nature. Carl Jung said, until you learn to make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people think they're thinking clearly, but they're reacting from emotion, validation, ego, and fear without even realizing it. So if I were starting over today, I would obsess over psychology, philosophy, behavior, persuasion, emotion, and attention. But most importantly, I would watch people closely. Because once you understand human nature, you start seeing the patterns behind almost everything.
Because once you know the truth, you can't unsee it. You won't be the same.
Michelangelo, but you may not know about his faith. Born 1475, died 1564. 88 years, he lived during the High Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Counter-Reformation. Painter of the Sistine Chapel, sculptor of David, sculptor of the Pietà and St. Peter's. Oh, and by the way, chief architect of St. Peter's Cathedral. But this work is relatively unknown. It's called the Florentine Pietà. He started it when he was 70 years old and worked on it for 8 years.
What?
He even attempted to rage quit the project. At one point, he was either frustrated with the marble or with his own lack of perfectionism, even in his 70s, and he took a hammer to it, and you can tell that the left leg of Christ is missing. What's striking about the sculpture is if you look at the top, you will see the figure of Nicodemus looking down on Christ. Nicodemus, of course, the Pharisee who in John chapter 3 goes to Jesus at night and hears that he must be born again. Then later he defends Jesus because he's not receiving due process from the high religious council. And then in John 19, he becomes identified with him as a public disciple when he cares for Jesus' dead body after he's been crucified. Now, scholars agree that Nicodemus' face is actually autobiographical. It's a self-portrait of Michelangelo himself. So what was Michelangelo doing? He was saying that he too is a disciple who is fraught with ambivalence and all kinds of contradictions. In Florence, where the sculpture is, right next to it is this haunting poem that Michelangelo himself wrote. It says, "The course of my life has brought me now through a stormy sea and a frail ship to the common port where, landing, we account for every deed, wretched or holy. So that finally I see how wrong the fond illusion was that made my art my idol and my king, leading me to want what harmed me. My amorous fancies, once foolish and happy, what sense have they now that I approach two deaths, the first of which I know is sure, the second threatening? Let neither painting nor carving any longer calm my soul. Turn to that divine love who to embrace us opened his arms upon the cross." Michelangelo's humility is the greatest artist in all of history. His awareness of his own idolatry and his hope in Christ are all amazing. And they all point to this truth. If we do not have Christ, it doesn't matter how talented, how rich, whatever we have, we actually have nothing.
The only thing that matters, our relationship with Jesus the Christ.
In 1909, a single family quietly bought up nearly every major pharmacy chain in America. Within a decade, the shelves of those pharmacies looked nothing like they had before. The herbs, the tinctures, the bark powders, the mineral compounds, the homeopathic remedies that had filled American drugstores for over a century, all of it vanished. In its place came petroleum-derived synthetics, patented chemicals, and a brand new word that nobody had used before, pharmaceuticals. The men who pulled this off were not doctors, they were not chemists. They had no background in healing whatsoever. They were oil refiners. By 1925, the same family controlled the medical schools, the licensing boards, the journals, the hospitals, and the very definition of what counted as medicine in the United States. Anything that did not come from a Rockefeller-funded laboratory was relabeled as quackery, witchcraft, or fraud. Doctors who refused to prescribe the new chemical drugs lost their licenses. Schools that taught the old methods were shut down or starved of money until they closed. And here is where it gets stranger. The architecture of those original pharmacies, the marble counters, the apothecary jars, the cast iron mortar and pestle on every corner, the buildings themselves, many of them dated back to a period that official history cannot fully account for. Some sat inside structures that locals swore were already there before the towns were officially founded. Some had Latin inscriptions carved above the doors that nobody alive could translate. Some had basements full of pharmacy equipment that did not match any catalogue of the era. Whatever was on those original shelves, whatever knowledge filled those leather-bound formularies, whoever built those strange old buildings, it was all replaced in the span of 15 years. And the replacement is what we now call modern medicine. If this kind of buried history pulls at you, the kind that does not appear in any textbook, hit subscribe.
It's not healthcare, it's sick care.
Is there still organized crime in New England? Absolutely. It's not quite the level of what it used to be. It's not the mafia, right? The Cosa Nostra, Patriarca family, Jerry Angiulo, who used to dominate the North End, they're a shade of what they used to be. The Irish mafia, Righty Bulger, they're not really around anymore. But down in New Bedford, you got this guy named Carlos Rafael, whose nickname is the Codfather, because the guy was openly orchestrating criminal activities. He owned the biggest fleet of boats in the most valuable port in the United States of America. And about 10 years ago, he sold his business for $100 million, although we don't actually know how much money he's worth today because it's so Wild West unregulated. He would tell the government he was catching haddock, which is nice and cheap and had very few limitations on it, when he was actually catching cod and sole, which have lots of limitations, so we do not overfish them, and then selling them at a huge profit. He was not paying the proper taxes. He was evading them. He was sending chunks of laundered money to Portugal. All of these things fairly in the open. As a matter of fact, in 2011, he was quoted as saying, "I am a pirate. It is the regulator's job to catch me, not my job to come and confess to you." Well, eventually there's a sting that goes out where these, fake Russian mobsters sent by the IRS are sent. He's eventually convicted in 2017, but the story is bananas. And if you'd like to hear more details about it, the good news is GBH News has produced yet another podcast by the great genius Ian Koss. If you have not listened to his episodes on the Big Dig, I highly recommend them, and the State Lotto in Massachusetts. But the new one on Catching the Codfather is out. 6-part series. You can get it on GBH News or on the YouTube channel for the same organization.
I'll take the actual mafia over any politician.
So Arthur Schopenhauer has a quote, and it's arguably one of the most brilliant things I've ever read. And I think you need to hear it. And it goes like this. A high degree of intellect tends to make a man unsocial, for the more he finds within himself, the less he needs from the outside world. Most people cannot bear silence because it forces them to confront themselves. So they fill their lives with noise, distraction, and endless entertainment. But the deeper a person thinks, the more exhausting shallow company becomes. And so, without hatred for humanity, he slowly learns to enjoy solitude. Not because he thinks he's better than others, but because peace becomes more valuable than belonging.
Being by yourself is not for everyone. You have to be built for this.
Achilles is the Nietzschean Übermensch, and Aeneas is the Aristotelian magnanimous man. Hush! Let me explain. While similar in many ways, the Übermensch is Nietzsche's answer to the collapse of inherited values. With the death of God, the old metaphysical and religious structures lose their unquestioned authority. Everything is rendered meaningless, and the question then becomes, what kind of human being can overcome the nihilism that naturally follows? Nietzsche's answer is the Superman, who does not merely obey received values, but creates value, meaning, and rank from out of his own strength. The Übermensch is thus defined by self-overcoming, by the ability to shape himself, rather than simply inherit himself. Like the magnanimous man, he is not dependent on the approval of the herd, but unlike him, he is not governed by divine hierarchy. Achilles is the greatest warrior among the Greeks at Troy, but what defines him most is his intense rage, superiority, and an almost terrifying awareness of his own worth. Early in the poem, when Agamemnon dishonors him by taking Briseis, Achilles does not submit for the sake of the Greek cause. He withdraws from battle, even though he knows his fellow Greeks will suffer and die for it, because in his own eyes, his cause is above theirs. Achilles also consciously chooses the shape of his life as he faces two possible destinies. One, a long, obscure life of comfort and family, or a short and brutal life of eternal glory. Of course, he chooses the latter, and that decision is perhaps one of the most Nietzschean moments in all of ancient literature. He is also singular in rank, as the entire Greek war effort bends around his presence or absence, as he is categorically above the other warriors. In that sense, Achilles embodies nearly all of the Nietzschean ideals of self-assertion, rank, intensity, chosen greatness, and affirmation through suffering. The one major exception is that he does not reject absolute moral hierarchy in the full Nietzschean sense, and that's because this idea is stupid. This ridiculous idea of creating one's own values and morals would have never had a foothold in any time in history before the late 19th century, and Achilles, the true Übermensch in every other sense of the word, would have laughed at this idea. He lived, as we all do, in a universe structured by God's fate and heroic codes. He does not create a wholly new table of values because that would render his deeds useless. So what do you guys think? Are you team Übermensch Achilles or team magnanimous man Aeneas? Either way, you must recognize your place in the divine hierarchy. Let me know in the comments.
This painting celebrates everything Christianity warned against. Painted between 1617 and 1619 by Peter Paul Rubens, Two Satyrs depicts followers of Dionysus, the Greek god of wine, pleasure, and excess. At first glance, they almost look demonic, but satyrs weren't devils. In Greek mythology, they were symbols of humanity's untamed instincts: desire, intoxication, fertility, and the pursuit of pleasure. Every detail points to that idea. The grapes, the wine vessel, the animal fur, and the satyr's expressions all belong to the world of Dionysus, where indulgence was celebrated rather than restrained. What makes the painting so interesting is that Rubens brings these mythical creatures uncomfortably close to us. Instead of portraying a distant mythological scene, he fills the canvas with physical presence, making the satyrs feel almost human. And that's the real subject of the painting. Not mythology, human nature, the tension between self-control and desire, reason and instinct. More than 400 years later, that struggle remains just as familiar as it was in Rubens's time. If you'd like to learn how to read paintings for yourself, my ebook, How to Read a Renaissance Painting, is available through the link in my bio.
Top 3 greatest quotes of all time, but they get increasingly more niche. Number 1, death is nothing, but to live defeated and inglorious is to die daily. Napoleon Bonaparte. Number 2, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Friedrich Nietzsche. Number 3, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones that you did do. Mark Twain. Study these, hold them close to your heart, and don't forget them, because you'll never know when you need them the most. Follow me for more.
6 earthquakes just hit.
Just read the book of Proverbs.
In the past 24 hours, starting with 2 in Venezuela, which now looks like a complete war zone. Over 11,000 people are now reportedly missing. Japan was hit by a 6.9, but they got advanced earthquake tech, so the damage was minimal. Other quakes happened in places like California and New Guinea, not to mention a massive one 2 weeks ago, which killed 77 in the Philippines. What connects them all is the Ring of Fire, but is something bigger coming?
The 7th seal, folks, had been broken.
I once listened to a boy with autism crying in the airport. He was having a nervous breakdown because one of the airlines had changed a specific logo on its pamphlet, and it was rocking his world. And he was sobbing and hitting himself, and he said something extremely wise, something only an autistic boy could say. Through his tears, he asked his mother, "What is making me feel this way?" His mother said, "It's just emotions." And then he said, "Why are they hurting me like this?" And in this statement, this boy was more perceptive than most modern people. Because most modern people take the identity of their emotions. They say, "I am sad," rather than "I feel sad." They think I'm having a thought when really the thought is having them. He talks about these emotions like they are wild dogs set upon him. And that's how it feels. That's how it feels intuitively. Before you learn what all these words like OCD and bipolar and depression are, it feels like wild animals being set upon you. The idea of passions or thoughts originating from within is a very recent one. Gods have become complexes. The ancients would have identified a god, be the agent which emoted, which caused a person to move.
But with the death of gods, man becomes responsible for his own destruction. Demons and thought forms are the same thing. The thing you give your psychic energy to becomes real in the psychic world, and it makes things happen. Desire shapes the future. Your thought is your desire. Desire shapes your deed, deed your destiny. Which is where you get the phrase, those who think they can and those who think they can't are both right. You're always going to be right. Whatever you're thinking, you're going to be right. So be careful what you think. You have to guard your thoughts. Every time I have a bad thought, I literally do this to myself. And I flick it out. Like sort of like how Dumbledore removes his memory. I perform a physical act so I can get the physiological feedback for a psychical response. Same premise with like facial feedback and smiling when you're upset. Or taking deep breaths to assure yourself that you're actually calm, you're safe, you're not having your panic attack is imaginary. What is imaginary is real. We call those two different things because our schema is so fucked up that we can't really conceptualize all of that shit. But imaginary and real things both have an effect on you. Dumbledore said that too. You might scoff at this. You might say, but those gods aren't real. Then I'll rebuttal with this. The economy's not real, but I bet you spend nearly every waking hour wondering how you can get more money. This requires a redefinition of what is real. Whatever changes your behavior is real. Call them emotions, gods, or the economy. That's real. Psychopathology is the return of the gods, whereas Homer give you the Cyclops. The modern Kafka-esque man feels like a bug trapped in his bed, right? The struggle becomes internalized. The monster becomes oneself. And I think it's curious, First Commandment says you shall have no other gods but me. It doesn't say there are no other gods. It says you shouldn't have them. I.e., they're out there. And people with their thought forms and their anxieties create lesser gods that they worship. Your anxiety is worship. All of these things are collective thought forms, egregores, Enochian watchers who shape human behavior. Everything that elicits a response out of you, every musician at a concert, every politician on a stage, me saying this, and you giving your heart to it or not, the thought form feeds on your emotion and becomes more and more real. Beware what you give your attention to. Celebrities and ideologies will vampire your energy to make themselves more powerful. And at the cost of your vitality and independence, you get to feel like you belong, but they don't care about you. And that's why it's so important to guard your mind, to build strong walls and to have a watchman there.
This may be Goya's first true nightmare on canvas. Painted around 1801, Ghostly Vision predates
Goya is so dark.
Goya's famous black paintings by nearly 20 years. It proves his fixation on the dark and supernatural started much earlier than most people realize. But there is a reason you have probably never seen it. This painting went completely missing for 90 years, only resurfacing recently in Spain. What makes it so haunting is how it was created. It is a tiny canvas, just 26 centimeters tall. Goya painted it in a single frenzied session without any sketch outlines, rushing to trap a nightmare before it escaped his mind. Look closely at the scene. A group of terrified figures cower in the darkness, while a colossal horned entity looms directly over them. No one knows exactly what this apparition represents. Is it a literal demon? Or is it a warning about mass hysteria, superstition, and the traps of the human imagination? If you'd like to learn how to read paintings for yourself, my ebook, How to Read a Renaissance Painting, is available through the link in my bio.
They say these giants built cities and devoured anything that crossed their path. This is the Quinametsin beast legend. From Aztec mythology, the Quinametsin were a race of enormous giants who lived in a previous age before humanity. They were described as towering, powerful beings capable of moving massive stones and constructing ancient cities. But they were also feared for their brutality, sometimes portrayed as savage creatures that preyed on humans. According to legend, they were eventually destroyed by the gods during a great catastrophe, wiping their kind from the world. So this is the Quinametsin beast. Follow for more mythical beasts and legends. You're watching Legends of Beast episode 107. See you.
They're also responsible for teaching humans witchcraft.
The next one.
In 1969, a 49-year-old postal clerk got the strangest offer of his life. His name was Charles Bukowski. For decades he'd been writing poetry in tiny literary magazines. Blue-collar jobs. Then years sorting mail at the post office. Completely unknown. Then a publisher named John Martin made him an offer. $100 a month for life if he'd quit and write full-time. A bet on a 49-year-old postal clerk who had never written a novel. Bukowski took it. He wrote Post Office in under a month. Published in 1971. He was 50 years old. Over 60 books followed. One of America's most influential writers. Decades of grinding compressed in 2 weeks. The breakthrough always looks sudden. It never is.
Dwight Eisenhower basically saved the world from Nazis. Guy was smoking 100 cigarettes a day and drinking 25 cups of coffee because he was that overwhelmed. So he had to come up with a way to handle all these decisions. So he came up with the Eisenhower matrix. It's not important and not urgent, you throw that shit away. But if it's important but not urgent, then you schedule it. So then you deal with it later. If it's important and urgent, then you do it. But if it's not important and urgent, then you delegate that. So somebody else handles the urgency.
Bolsheviks and their funding won World War II.
Guys, a truck that was carrying 24 million bees just flipped over in Texas, and an entire neighborhood just had to get locked down and told to seal their windows. So the truck was hauling 406 beehives through a town called Mauriceville in Texas, and the driver just didn't make a turn and flipped the entire thing into a ditch. Each single one of those hives was holding between 60 and 80,000 bees, so the second that the truck flipped, 24 million bees basically just flew all up into the air at once. And then Orange County Emergency Services straight up told the entire neighborhood to stay inside and seal their windows because there were that many bees flying outside.
Whoa, look at that.
Hello. They had to call in multiple different local beekeepers from 3 to 4 different companies to suit up and try to round them all back up into the boxes. Thankfully, no people were hurt, but there are multiple different reports in the area that apparently some dogs in the neighborhood got stung. Would you go outside if your county was warning you to seal your windows with 24 million bees out there? Because I can barely handle one.
Yeah.
The real Jamaicans came from Ireland. Let's break it down. Jamaicans were the original nobility of Europe who were overthrown by Oliver Cromwell and banished to Jamaica. Oliver Cromwell overthrew the absolute monarchy of the Stuart family, establishing the Commonwealth. Jamaicans didn't even speak patois till the Irish came. Oliver Cromwell's invasion of Jamaica in 1655 birthed Jamaican patois. His forced deportation of thousands of Irish prisoners and enslaved West Africans to work sugar plantations resulted in a unique linguistic fusion. Oliver Cromwell went to war with the Stuart family. These were literally black people. King Charles Stuart II, the black boy king of England. The word Stuart comes from the old Nordish root svart, which means black. Stuart is the same word as swarthy, which means black in Old English. There was once a Stuart line of kings in England. Idi Amin tried to tell you this in his movie, The Last King of Scotland. But anyway, consider the following. Inside the word Angus is the word negus. Angus is deeply tied to Scottish culture. Negus is the antonym for the N-word, meaning king, ruler, or emperor in the Ethiopian language. This is interesting because Jamaica and Ethiopia share a profound historical and cultural bond. Also, the Angus cow is all black. Look at the Jamaican and Scottish flags. They share the same diagonal X-shaped cross design known as a saltire. They are the only 2 national flags in the world to share this specific cross. But wait, there's more. When they get mad, they act the same and fight the same. Both Jamaicans and the Irish share stereotypes of being aggressive or hot-headed. These traits are rooted in expressive or blunt language. They both fight in mountains. Irish rebels and regular soldiers have fought in the Scottish Highlands. The Jamaican Maroons fought the British in the rugged mountains and highlands. Irish moss is Irish. During the 1840s famine, starving Irish people relied on boiled algae for basic nourishment and survival. When those same Irish immigrants immigrated to the Caribbean later in the century, they recognized similar red algae species growing on the coast of Jamaica and shared their tradition of harvesting and boiling it. Beef patties are Irish. The Jamaican patty is a direct evolutionary descent of the British Cornish pasty. I'm not saying Jamaicans are white, I'm saying Irish are black. The very first people to inhabit Ireland had dark skin and striking blue eyes. Archaeological and genetic research indicates that these hunter-gatherers, who arrived on the island thousands of years ago, did not possess the genetic mutations for light skin that later became common. Irish is all up in Jamaica, just like black is all up in Ireland. Duff is derived from the Gaelic word dub, which means black or dark. It's used as a surname in Irish and Scottish culture. Dub, meaning black. Origin, Scottish. When I say dub, think Dublin, the largest city and capital of Ireland. In Jamaican patois, Irie means everything is good, all right, or fine. Jamaicans come from Ireland, so when I say it's all Irie, it's all Irie. The full video's on my Crumb TV Patreon. Tap all the way in.
For the first time ever, CEOs are wincing while eating their own products. This bizarre footage shows Driscoll's CEO eating their sweetest batch on live TV and referring to it as a total setup. What he was eating wasn't just a berry, it's a crossbred replica sprayed with cypermethrin, a pyrethroid, and roach spray, then dipped into fludioxonil, a hormone-disrupting fungicide. And it gets worse. Those berries are gassed with sulfur dioxide and sealed in an airless vault until the sweetest are crowned sweetest batch. That exact batch scanned boscolid, a fungicide the EPA says may cause cancer. While organic flagged, none were detected for all pesticides. Check the Exposure app to see exactly what's in your food and comment app, and I'll send you a link myself.
Thank God for the internet for information like this.
Magnets. Watch. They have a field. They're in the shape of a torus. Now when you create magnets in that shape, watch this. When you look down the torus hole, it makes a field in the golden ratio. Those are magnetic balls in that magnetic field. They naturally self-organize in the same shape as molecular bonds. We're just getting started. When you draw the pattern of what those balls make, you get the pattern that we've seen since ancient times. The ancient Chinese food dogs are guarding this. It's burned into a rock in Egypt. Daddy Da Vinci has it in his notebook. You have this pattern inside of you. That's what cell division looks like. When you connect the lines of the circles, then something even crazier comes out. It creates the simplest pattern you can divide 3D space up into. The pattern's hidden in the ancient Sumerians' tree of life. That's the first civilization ever. Almost every ancient tradition had a tree of life, which is also a little strange. But the Hebrew mystics had this tree of life called the Sephiro. 10 of those trees of life, when you rotate them around, create the same pattern up there. That is a staggering amount of coincidences. There's actually so many symbols in that shape, I can't really cover it in one single video. Even our modern theories on wormholes are exactly the same shape. The same plane that those little balls were self-organizing onto, galaxies form in the same shape on that same plane. Congratulations, you're a genius now because of a magnet.
You think if you looked better, you'll finally feel enough. But Marcus Aurelius wrote something strange about beauty in his Meditations, and I think if you understand this, it will help with insecurities. So he writes in book 4 of his Meditations, everything in any way beautiful has its beauty of itself, inherent and self-sufficient. Praise is no part of it. At any rate, praise does not make anything better or worse. This applies even to the popular conception of beauty, as in material things or works of art. So does the truly beautiful need anything beyond itself, no more than law, no more than truth, no more than kindness or integrity. Which of these things derives its beauty from praise, or withers under criticism? Does an emerald lose its quality if not praised? And what of gold, ivory, purple, a lyre, a dagger, a flower, a bush? You are already enough. And looking for approval makes you feel less than. It's telling yourself that I am not enough unless someone says so. It's like sometimes you'll go out feeling great, you'll feel good about yourself, and then someone comments on your hair, your face, your outfit, your voice, your laugh, and suddenly you're so self-conscious about that thing. So you start shrinking, you play it small. Well, Marcus Aurelius is giving you permission to flourish, to be yourself. Because your true beauty, the only gift that you have, is your unique self, your authenticity. So every day you need to keep stepping into that authenticity, into your unique self. Stop trying to fit in, because every time you try to fit into someone else's standard, someone else's frame, you lose parts of yourself. You cut parts of yourself off to fit in.
Everyone is beautiful if you get to know them.
Women are magnetized to dark triads. There's a category of men that's really good at looking like they're falling in love when they're actually not. The dark triad is a combination of 3 personality characteristics. Narcissism, it's all about me. Machiavellianism, which is I'm willing to hurt you to serve my ends. And psychopathy, psychopathic traits, which is if I hurt you, I don't feel remorse or empathy for you at all. Those are the 3 traits. And when it's all about me, I'm willing to hurt you and I don't care. That's super dangerous. People who do fulfill these characteristics are 1 in 14. It's 7% of the population. It's a lot.
I would say that's a lot.
That's a lot. Everybody who's listening to us right now or watching us right now has encountered a dark triad. And that was a weird thing where somebody became a friend a little too fast and then betrayed you. It's a boyfriend that acted like he was like love bombed you like crazy. And then he emptied your bank account and used you and abandoned you. Or if you had the bad luck of actually marrying that guy, he cheated on you over and over and over again. Or you worked for one who was very abusive and exploitative and took credit for your work. You know, that kind of thing is actually what they do all the time.
When I came across
that body of work of yours, I had to I had to like go for a walk of like, I want to make sure that
you're not.
I'm doing everything.
If you're worried
right.
about it, you're not.
Okay. All right, good.
No, there's a test on my website, by the way.
Oh,
I've got a
okay,
whole
good.
battery of tests that people can actually take about, their affect profile and their general happiness level.
Okay.
That's called the happiness scale. But
Okay,
I have
tell them what's your website.
ArthurBrooks.com.
Perfect. All
yeah.
right.
And people can go there and take a test and see, their dark triad characteristics or the person they're dating, which is really important, especially for women.
Dark triads have figured out how to be extremely charming to get what they want. It all comes with manipulation tactics that are shallow.
You're looking at a monster who just rocked our entire justice system to its core. Yvonne Missy Woods just pled guilty to 4 felony counts so that she wouldn't have to plead guilty to the hundreds of counts she actually committed. Why has this not made national headlines yet? Because this is breaking news. This was a forensic scientist who was manipulating and deleting DNA evidence while working for the Colorado Bureau of Investigation as a DNA analyst for nearly 30 years. They found in this one investigation of this forensic scientist is absolutely heartbreaking and utterly infuriating. While they are painting this woman as if she just did the honorable thing to plead guilty to 4 felony charges. What the investigation found was that this one woman was intentionally leaving DNA samples out, repeatedly testing the same DNA samples until she got the results she wanted, intentionally not reporting the DNA findings in cases, and in at least 30 assault cases simply deleted the DNA evidence, resulting in her report stating that the male DNA she received didn't actually have any male DNA, when in fact the DNA sample she had did have male DNA. Not just talking victims having their cases dropped because of the lack of DNA evidence, but the fact that some of these victims weren't believed because the proof in the DNA never actually made it to the right hands. We're talking in some of these cases, innocent people were sent to jail for crimes they never committed. Like one Colorado man who has spent the last 12 years in prison thanks to his DNA being mishandled by Missy Woods. Michael Clark has since been freed of a crime he says he never committed, but his kids, who were children when he went to jail, now grown up, and he'll never get that time back, thanks to what this woman intentionally and repeatedly did over the course of decades. Talking cases where the DNA evidence played a pivotal role in people being found guilty versus not guilty. Them trying to paint this woman as if she's now doing the right thing by accepting responsibility. Her pleading guilty to 4 felony charges was an agreement she made after initially putting in a plea of non-guilty. So why is she pleading guilty now? Because it was agreed that they would drop hundreds of charges against her and would only be serving 8 to 16 years. For a woman who intentionally ruined victims' cases and put innocent people behind bars.
Wow. Investigate the DA who allowed this plea deal.
Have you ever wondered who the most evil person in all of fiction is? I found a character so disturbing that I genuinely questioned whether they should have been written in the first place. Judge Holden is the most evil character in fiction, and it's not even close, motherfuckers. No one can argue against this. If Satan was on Earth, it would be Judge Holden. That's what he's called, by the way. If the devil was on Earth, manifested as a dude doing shit, it's him. Judge Holden is part of this thriller horror book. He leads a gang that conducts raids, kills a bunch of native people, that type of stuff, but he goes even farther than that. He's pretty much an existential nihilist who believes that war and violence is God. That's the only true meaning in the world. If you're not a part of that, there's something wrong with you. Look at some quotes, okay? He claims that he will never sleep and die. He acts as the eternal looming personification of sin, war, and mankind's innate capacity for evil. The judge despises religion, nature, and spirituality. He believes that analyzing and controlling something inherently strips it of its natural wonder, leaving only violent reality behind. He wants things unknown. Look at his feats. Mass slaughtering, R-wording, not just women, kids, multiple. He's beyond Epstein. He bought puppies only to throw them off a roof or something and kill them. Multiple raids that end in the killing of children and women. He does this all for fun. He doesn't feel anything. He's beyond anybody. He will convince you that the only meaning in life is violence and war, and then he will molest you. And then he'll get his gang to do more. Look into Judge Holden, y'all. Watch my video on Judge Holden after this. The most evil character in fiction, period, point blank.
An Australian ad executive lost his family farm as a teenager, moved to LA and turned heirloom tomatoes into a $50 million luxury brand. And he did it by doing the exact opposite of what every direct-to-consumer playbook tells you. Richard Christensen grew up on his family's farm in Australia. Then they lost it. That kind of thing stays with you. Now, fast forward, he builds a successful advertising agency, sells it, buys a 7-acre estate in the hills of LA, and basically turns it into his personal Garden of Eden. Then COVID hits. Restaurants are closed, local farmers are going under, so Richard starts boxing up produce from his estate and selling it to friends, just to help farmers survive. And that little act of generosity accidentally became Flamingo Estate. The produce boxes started selling out, then doubling every weekend. Then an olive oil maker approached him about making soap together, and that's when everything changed. Flamingo Estate pivoted from produce to luxury bath and body products. They've now collaborated with LeBron James, Martha Stewart, Ai Weiwei, Will Ferrell, and Sesame Street. What makes Flamingo Estate genuinely interesting for founders isn't the celebrity collabs or the revenue. It is actually the strategy underneath. Richard calls it anti-innovation. While everybody else is chasing AI and biotech and speed, Flamingo Estate runs in the literal opposite direction. Slowness, ancient rituals, the analog sacred connection between people and plants. His actual quote is, "Mother Nature is the last great luxury house." He runs the brand like a fashion house. Creative leads everything. Now, here are 3 lessons from Flamingo Estate. Lesson number 1, leverage your own origin story. Richard didn't manufacture a brand story. He literally lives on the estate. His home is the brand headquarters. That's the kind of authenticity competitors can't replicate with a bigger budget. Now, lesson number 2, cultural collabs beat influencer deals. They actually collaborate with cultural icons, think artists, athletes, TV shows. That kind of filter kills 90% of bad partnerships. And lesson number 3, going slower can be a competitive advantage. In a market where everyone's optimizing for speed and scale, Flamingo Estate embraces what Richard calls radical inconsistency. Not every batch is identical. Not every product is year-round. In a world of Amazon Prime and worldwide shipping, being deliberately slow is the most punk thing you can do in 2026. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm the co-founder of MuseFunnel, and we have built the world's first social networking, marketing, and collaboration platform for emerging brands and businesses to connect with freelance talent. And the link is in my bio if you want to go check it out. It is totally free to sign up, and I'm on a mission to make opportunities more accessible for
This is 100% classic marketing playbook.
everyone.
Blink Twice. You seen that movie Blink Twice? So Blink Twice was just about this tech billionaire.
This movie was super disturbing. It's on Tubi, by the way.
Island, and then he takes all these people to an island to go party.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
I did
okay,
see
you saw that, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Basically, this tech billionaire goes to his island, has a bunch of people, right? He takes all these people and, you know, guys and girls, and everybody's having a good time. Unlimited food, drinks, all this stuff, right? Then what happens is that these girls are starting to have gaps in time. They don't remember certain days or nights. They're like, what day is it? They're trying to like remember, and come to find out that he was drugging these girls, and they didn't know how because there was blocks of time that were missing. And what happened was one of the girls that got invited, her best friend was next door. She's there. They're partying. Days go by. All of a sudden, she knocks on the door. All her stuff is cleared out. She's like, where's my friend? And she goes to the other people on the island. Hey, where's so-and-so? Who? Nobody remembers the friend. So nobody remembers that. Like, she's like, no, my friend was here. What are you guys talking about? Hey, you're crazy. Like, there was nobody who came with you. What are you talking about? So he was actually drugging them with a certain component that makes you forget, but not makes you forget just anything. It makes you forget trauma. So these girls were getting SA'd and these different nights, and they don't even remember. So he has this perfume that he gives to the girls. He's like, hey, spray this on, you'll smell good. That's the component in the perfume.
Epstein had that though.
Correct.
Epstein had that in the files.
It's called devil's breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's actually crazy because I told you my friend Marina, she was
An Epstein victim.
She doesn't remember getting raped.
Oh my God. So in the files, he has these plants called, they have different names, devil's breath, trumpet plants, but they have this component in them called scopolamine, which makes you susceptible to do anything. I'll say something, you'll do it.
The CIA uses that.
Yes, but you also forget things too. You forget what happens, trauma. He has this on the island in the movie, and then we actually see it in the Epstein files. So where he's like, hey, where's my trumpet plants?
Yikes.
Meet Ava Gardner, a rather classic jade face. Very rare face. Don't see this very often. There are 9 face shapes. This and the moon face and the wall face are extremely rare. They do exist, and because they exist, I had to put them into my thinking cap as a physician because I would talk to people differently based on their face shape. If I was talking to someone like myself, a bucket face, I know I have to be ready to answer all their questions. If I'm talking to a king face, they're very matter of fact. Just the facts, ma'am. Jade faces, they're hard. Jade is a mineral that's very hard, and these people are hard. She dumped Frank Sinatra. That's how hard she was. So let's dig in and see the classic traits that are so common in a true jade face. Again, it's determined by the jawline being wider than the top and the bottom, and that's what she is. We'll first look at the right and left eyes. And the right eye is what we show to the world. It's our public persona. It's our mother's influence. The left is our true and our private self, and it's our father's influence. Jade faces are always interesting. So if we cover up her left eye and just look at her right eye, she's aloof, which is the classic trait of a jade face. Now, cover up that right side, look at that left side, completely sure of herself. She just knows exactly what she wants and how to get it, which is, again, the jade face trait. Let's dig a little deeper and start with the eyebrows. You can't look at those eyebrows and go, yeah, there's something different there, because there is. They're very high set, which means high standards. Jade faces have very high standards. Important thing to realize when you're talking to a jade face, it's not about you. It's about them. There always has to be their idea. Very difficult patient to work with because everything had to be their idea. So don't take it personally. That's the key with jade faces. Don't take anything they say personally because they don't even know they're that aloof and that haughty and that potentially arrogant. So very high set, very high standards, very aloof. They are unequal heights, which indicates they're moody, they're sensitive, probably had a tempestuous relationship with a parent or a step-parent growing up. Chances are her parents didn't stay married. And then notice how these things come really screaming down at an angle. This is someone that's hypercritical. Another classic trait we see in the jade face because of this high critical nature. It's actually greater on that left side. Did she have a critical father? Chances are yes. Probably made her who she was. Rather interesting thing. Upper eyelids are puffy. This is a sign of internalized anger. She would like to explode and doesn't because she's too aloof to explode. So she's going to internalize that anger. That ends up losing your gallbladder. It's classic because the gallbladder is represented in that area. Internalized anger, you'll tend to lose the gallbladder. Cheeks are very flat. This is someone that resists authority, prefers to work alone, is moody, and she likes to avoid conflict. She doesn't like conflict at all. So again, the key with jade face is realize anything they say, don't take it personally. And she is a classic jade face. So hard, she dumped Frank Sinatra. Found that an interesting trait. Hope you enjoyed meeting Ava Gardner.
No cop or detective allows a Ouija board to be in their house because every time they encounter mass murder, suicide, arson, they encounter a Ouija board. They did not allow Ouija boards to be in the evidence locker room. Sucker's already haunted. We don't need it more haunted.
The oldest known surviving portrait of Christ was painted nearly 1,500 years ago, and it exists against all odds. Empires collapsed. Wars were fought. Entire collections of religious art vanished forever. Yet somehow, this image survived it all, and it hides a strange secret. The longer you look at it, the more it feels like you're looking at two different people. At first glance, it looks like a normal religious image, but look closer. One side of the face appears calm, compassionate, and almost gentle. The other feels more intense, more severe, almost unsettling. And if you mirror each half of the face separately, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. The painting is known as Christ's Pantocrator and is kept inside St. Catherine's Monastery in the Egyptian desert, one of the oldest functioning monasteries in the world. Many historians believe the asymmetry was intentional. One side may represent Christ as a merciful savior, the other, Christ as a divine judge. Together, they express one of Christianity's central ideas, that Christ is both fully human and fully divine. What's even more remarkable is how this painting survived. While thousands of religious images were destroyed during the Byzantine iconoclasm, this icon remained protected inside a remote desert monastery. Today, it remains one of the greatest mysteries in art history. Was the asymmetry a deliberate masterpiece of visual storytelling? Or are we seeing meanings that the artist never intended? Either way, seems like someone was thinking about symbolism, psychology, and visual perception nearly 15 centuries ago. And that's what makes this painting so fascinating.
Beautiful and timeless. Amen.
Did you know that Soho was once a notorious high-class prostitution district called Frenchtown? From 1870 to 1890, Soho was New York's primary red light district, while Frenchtown, or Little France, was a legitimate ethnic enclave for French immigrants. It became synonymous with the city's vice trade due to its high concentration of high-end brothels and French-style services. And hi, in case you don't know me, I'm Darlene Liebman, a New York City native and a New York City real estate broker. This red light district was around Green, Mercer, and Wooster Streets. By day, the neighborhood featured French bakeries and cafes, but by night it transformed into a den of iniquity. The French label in the Victorian era carried a specific subtext. It was a euphemism for all things considered sexually progressive or sophisticated. The brothels advertised French girls to imply a higher level of luxury and cost, compared to the rougher dives around the areas like Five Points. The architecture of Soho played a vital role in the success of the vice trade. The buildings were designed to look like high society homes, which helped hide the true business of what was going on inside. Most of the houses built on Green and Wooster Streets were built in a Federal or Greek Revival style. To a passerby, they appeared to be homes of wealthy merchants, allowing high-end clients like politicians and businessmen to come and go as they pleased without anyone being the wiser. The parlor floor served as a stage. It featured high ceilings, massive mirrors, and ornate moldings to project an image of wealth and luxury. A night of brothel hopping in the 1870s was highly ritualized and an expensive affair. It was curated as a social experience rather than just a transaction. You didn't just go into a brothel, do your business, and leave. This was an all-night affair of running around to different places to be entertained and check out the merchandise. The night began with a pocket-sized guidebook sold openly at newsstands. It was called the Gentleman's Directory, and it was kind of like a Zagat's but for brothels. These guys reviewed brothels all over town, and they would note all the different attractions each one had, like different types of music, different types of wine, different types of vibe, and the general theme of each establishment. The end of Frenchtown came when the cast-iron textile warehouses began to move in. As the neighborhood shifted from residential to industrial, the high-class trade moved uptown, leaving the grand parlors of Soho to be converted into the lofts and galleries we see today. Soho has reinvented itself numerous times over the years, but it's never lost its edge. It's a neighborhood where history and luxury are gold-plated. If you're ready to find your own piece of real estate in this legendary district, you should reach out to me and we can work together. Because in New York City, the only thing better than knowing its history is owning a piece of it. And of course, if you like this, don't forget to follow me for more great New York City stories.
Gang of New York. You all should watch that movie.
The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung believed that this was the most important task of your life. It was discovering your personal myth. He believed that modern Western culture had lost its collective myth, and the task now fell to the individual. He called it the task of tasks. Jungian writer Phil McCash writes that you can't live outside of a myth. You either live it unconsciously or you live it with awareness. But let's just be clear, your personal myth is not some heroic fantasy. As Lucy Huskinson writes, it is a living narrative that is unfolding through you, in your habits, your relationships, and your decisions, every single day. The same patterns, the same emotional loops, the same kind of outcomes. And it's built from real material, your dreams, your fantasies, your wounds, even your complexes, those emotionally charged patterns that trigger you without you choosing. But here's the good news, if you can start to see the story you are living in, you can begin to participate in it, you can begin to shift it, and maybe, hopefully, step out of tragedy. Because Carl Jung said men have mythical fates just as much as the Greek heroes do. And a lot of people forget that Hercules killed himself. So if you want to step into something more meaningful, start asking yourself this. What keeps repeating in my life and why? If you like the video, follow the page, subscribe on YouTube for podcasts with amazing guests every 2 weeks, and more videos like this.
Exactly. Refuse to let others tell you your own story.
Breaking news, scientists have just figured out how to read from the oldest library in the world. Let's fucking go!
Ikbonetinton mindoyamon diates datesios etes matesios katotinidiliptesomitaoton.
The library at Herculaneum is over 2,000 years old and was perfectly preserved by the hot ash of Mount Vesuvius, carbonizing all of the scrolls and leaving them rock hard. But neural networks have allowed us to digitally unwrap the scrolls and find out what's inside. The section I just read from was written by the Greek author Philodemus, a 2nd century century Epicurean philosopher who wrote on many subjects like music, poetry, and here talks about the gods, but all of their works were completely lost prior to this discovery at Herculaneum. See, before this, Renaissance scholars tried to physically unroll these scrolls, which were structurally just charcoal at that point, resulting in permanent damage without any readings whatsoever. But the method here is completely non-invasive. We take a 3D scan of the scroll and then digitally unwrap it, detecting the slight traces of carbon ink that were left behind. Gosh, just think about all of the poetry that will be recovered from this amazing discovery.
This is absolutely incredible.
So as it turns out, Jared and Ivanka's new luxury resort in Albania is actually a military bunker in disguise.
It's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat. We swam to the island. We went on a hike, barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated.
There ain't no way she was hiking to the top of that hill. Barefoot.
She ain't hiking anywhere. So anyways, I see this, and my first thought was, are we about to get nuked?
Communist Albania's most secretive military base, right? It's a derelict military base off the coast of Albania with 3,600 bunkers built to withstand a nuclear attack. So they just stumbled upon this, by the way.
Right. Obviously, there's something nefarious going on.
Which is why the Albanian people are aggressively protesting this. All right, folks, thank you for staying till the end. I hope you like my lineup. Don't forget to subscribe, like, hype, okay? So you won't miss my next video. Have an awesome day, and always, God bless.